Hi, I'm Tim Chappel, and I'm one of the costume designers, the other one being Lizzie Gardner, and we designed the costumes for the film you're about to see, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. The funny thing about Priscilla is that it came at a time when Sydney was full of originality. The drag scene was very different to the rest of the world. In other countries, especially like America, it was more RuPaul style drag where men were trying to look like women, like girls. But in Sydney, drag was a kind of gay theatre, and I wanted to capture that and honour that by being as original as possible. There's a scene in Broken Hill where they go shopping, and I was like, well, they're shopping, and what can we do? I was like, credit cards. So I remember that Paco Rabanne had done a really great dress out of credit cards in the 60s. Not credit cards, they were plastic tiles, but they always looked like credit cards to me. And I was like, oh, we'll do that. So Lizzie and I went to American Express, MasterCard, Visa, Commonwealth Bank, ANZ, everybody, and they all said no. And then we thought, well, I still want to do the tile thing. What can we use? And we saw a thong lying on the side of the road, and it was like, oh, that's it. We'll do it out of thongs. Which is funny because if I tell this story in America, they all think about G-strings, which is much harder to make a dress out of. Yeah. Priscilla has had an amazing life. She nearly didn't get born at all. We went to places like Screen Australia, and the note that they sent back with the script that they declined was deeply shallow, which it is in some ways, and in other ways I think it's what they've mistaken for being shallow is not taking anything too seriously. And I think that's the joy of Priscilla, is that it's presenting things that are actually really important and meaningful, but allowing you to decide how important those things are. Like the fact that drag queens can have children. I mean, at the time it was a really outrageous idea, and some people would find it quite disgusting, but it was just human, and they were beautiful human characters. Okay, so you're going to come to a scene where Felicia is on top of the bus, and it's in the script, it was this moment of complete freedom. And it's written as Felicia climbs on top of the bus. She looks like the statuette on the front of the Rolls Royce. That was it. That was the only description. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Anyway, I built the costume. We had our giant high heel. And I put the wings on, and we did a little test, and they were just sad. They weren't big enough. It just looked like a kiddie's kite. So I went to the producers and I said, we need to fix this. And they said, how much do you need? And I was like, can we double our budget to 15,000? It really was that much for the whole film. So we bought every metre of silver lame in Australia, which at the time actually ended up only being about 120 metres. And I stayed up all the night before the shoot, and actually it was a full 24 hours of sewing, and I cut it all on the bias so that it would flow. Anyway, so we got it on the bus. I draped it along the road, and this was just before dawn, and as the sun came up, we were like, oh, it's so beautiful, we can't wait. And we did a take. And on action, the bus took off and the fabric just went. And the safety officer came over to me and said, it's really dangerous. It's going to get caught in the back axle and rip the act off. So you have to cut it off. And I went, okay, I've just spent 24 hours sewing this thing together and I'm going to have to cut it off. So I got my big scissors out, went over with my tail between my legs, and went to cut it. And just as I picked up the fabric to cut it, this gust of wind picked the whole thing out of my hands and flew into the air. And then Stefan said, quick, action. And we shot it and we got that beautiful shot. That was amazing.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it really was. Collaborating is key to good filmmaking, but also is having a vision. And my vision and Stefan's vision were very different. He wanted them to look like ladies. But like I said, I was trying to make it look original and representative of Sydney. So I did what I wanted to do, and he fought me tooth and nail all the way through. And I was like, no, we're doing this. Interestingly enough, that brings us to the point of boobs. Boobs are key. I didn't want the drag queens to look like women. I wanted them to look like drag queens. So they don't have boobs on in any of the costumes. I think maybe occasionally they do, but they're not trying to be women. And I thought that was really important. We made sure that there was a very distinct line between a drag queen and a transsexual, because at the time people didn't really understand what trans was, and it was really important that that Bernadette, who is trans, is a woman, and that's just that. She's a woman who does drag, but I think that very subtle storyline is really evident, and we made it really clear. In fact, we got a Swedish backpacker at one point to do the swimming scene so that we could show that Bernadette had boobs. One of the sweetest scenes in the film is the corroboree scene, where the cast stumble on corroboree, and it's not even really corroboree, it's Indigenous people in the outback having a party. And it's such a beautiful scene. I remember I spoke to one of the elders before we shot the scene, like the week before, and he said, oh, so do you want us to do the, eucalypt leaves and the body paint? And I was like, no, it's your party. It's whatever you would wear to your own party. And he said, oh, no one's ever asked us to do that before. Just be ourselves. And it was so wonderful. And the night was a night-long party. And it's funny that I got an Oscar for this film because I made most of the costumes, and some of them were literally held together with duct tape and wire. On the film, the costumes only had to last through the take, and there are some scenes where I'm literally holding it on their body while they're shooting it. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is when we were about to leave, take all the costumes on the road, I said, please get us a decent wardrobe truck. Don't get us a rubbish one. So they got us the most shit wardrobe truck they could. It was basically a Mr. Whippy van, and they packed all the costumes onto the Mr. Whippy van, and the engine isn't in the front, it's kind of underneath or towards the back. So they put everything on. They got to like a Lake Air, and the whole thing overheated, and they took the costumes out, which were all in boxes, and all the hot glue had melted, and they were perfectly formed hot glue packages. So I had to remake all the costumes out on the road. Yeah. And the best part of the story is the only wardrobe truck left was the very best, brand new, mezzanine level wardrobe truck that had beautiful air conditioning, surround sound, and I just sat there sewing and hot gluing, and Lizzie had to be on set, and occasionally the door would fly open and Lizzie would come in covered in flies going, you go on set. I'm like, oh no, I'm sewing, I'm sorry, you have to be on set. You're about to see Priscilla, queen of my life. She's been my mother and my den mother for 30 years now, and she never stops giving. She's given me an Oscar, she's given me a Tony, she's given me everything but a Logie, and I love her for it.